more on this, let's cross to Bob Watson, who is the co-chair of the United Nations Environment Programme, Making Peace with Nature. Bob, thank you very much indeed for joining us. That's somewhat depressing. I mean, all of it is, I suppose, everything we read about climate change these days, but somewhat depressing that despite all of those lockdowns across the Western world, there were still increased levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere.
Yes, very depressing, no question whatsoever. We urgently need governments working with the private sector to take action. If we're going to try and limit human-induced climate change to 1.5 degrees Celsius, a target set in Paris in 2015, we need to reduce our global emissions this decade by 2030 by at least 50% relative to today. And we need to have net zero emissions by the middle of the century. This is a really terrible situation we're in at the moment.
I wonder, do you think, do the political leaders fully grasp the situation? And what would you like to see coming out of COP26, which gets underway very shortly in Glasgow?
I think they understand the situation. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has explained what the implications of climate change are, how they're due to human activity. They've explained how we have to cut our emissions immediately from energy production, use that energy more efficiently, have more sustainable agricultural practices. The question is there the political will? China and India, the first and third largest emitters, said they possibly can't limit their greenhouse gas emissions until 2030. It's not obvious that President Biden from the US can live up to the American commitments, given the opposition of many Republicans in the United States. So we need not just pledges, we need governments to actually have actions. What policies, what technologies, what financing will be available to actually achieve these targets? And another depressing report came out today to say that the $100 billion promised to developing countries to adapt and mitigate to climate change won't be reached till at least 2023. And developing countries need this financial assistance if they're going to reduce their emissions and to adapt.
And what about the political message, Bob, from leaders in many of the countries around the world to the people who live in their countries? Because most people grasp that it's a massive problem. They'd like to do something about it, but they think, well, what can I do? What little thing can I do to make relevant change? What should the message to those people be?
The first message is vote for politicians that understand this problem, understand that climate change, destruction of nature are actually human well-being issues. They affect our food security, water security, human health. So first, vote for politicians that care. Secondly, use your purchasing power. Tell the private sector, we want our goods and services that are sustainably produced. They can also make sure they don't waste energy, don't waste food, don't waste water. They can consider maybe more plants and vegetables in their diet and a little bit less red meat. So there's major things that we as individuals can do. But the main thing is telling governments we care, that we want action, telling the private sector we care, we want action.
Well, we keep our fingers crossed and we hope you keep banging the drum. Bob, thank you very much indeed for joining us on TRT World. That's Bob Watson.